Hey everybody, welcome to NewWayStories. My name is Jesse. I am your host.
Prove it.
Here,
Prove it.
License. You know, I don't have to
I
prove.
remember in 2008, they were asking me for my birth certificate, and I'd like to see yours. Prefer it if you show me yours.
I love Obama just asking for every next president's birth certificate.
Very nice.
I had to show mine. So, yes, I am Jesse. I'm the host of NewWayStories. With me, as always, Darius, Giles, and our producer, Ben Salazar. We are a comedy podcast that talks about creativity, making the world a better place, but also mostly movies and comic books and things of that nature. With us today, we have a very special guest. It is Darius's little brother. His name is Seth Giles, and he's always introduced as that. Even people who don't know Darius, you go, "Hi, I'm Darius's little brother, Seth," and they go, "Who's Darius?" And you go, "Listen, contractually obligated to say Darius's little brother." Hey, Seth, how's it going?
Hello, Jesse. Hello. Going very well. Very excited. Very excited. I feel like I'm, one of the cool kids now. I have listened to probably like 13 hours of NewWayStories over the last 2 weeks.
Boom.
Holy smokes.
You're just getting, you wanted to make sure you could get into the flow if you ever were on. And then all you do is you text me and I go, we need guests. There you go. So here you are.
You've listened to probably 13 hours more of the podcast than I've listened to.
So Seth is here more so than just texting me or just being related to the co-host.
Or we once ran into each other at a restaurant.
Or just because they once ran into each other.
And 15% recognized Malia.
Seth, 15%.
15%.
Seth is releasing a new song this Wednesday. So if you are listening to it on the day of this drop, check it out on Wednesday. If it's later than the day it dropped, it probably is already out. So you should go listen to it. But also, he produces music. He is in a band called McCafferty. And we're going to talk about all of that stuff because I feel like
It's not a bad tickle fighter, I can tell you that.
that's and we'll get into everything. We'll get into the process of how you get into it, how you start tickling, how you defend tickling, I guess. But first, and Seth, you can jump in on this as well, but Kate brought up a really good point to me earlier. So this Friday, Gladiator 2 is coming out.
All right.
And I watched a compilation. Recently found out that my mother-in-law's celebrity crush is Denzel, and I go, well, it makes sense, other than the race mixing. But so I was like watching Denzel compilations, and
It's not a white-black thing. It's a purity of blood thing. Neither one is better nor worse, but we want them all to remain pure.
Magic folk and non-magic
Jesus
folk.
is coming back for a pure and spotless bride. How many times do we have to tell people?
No. And so I was watching compilations of Denzel moments, and I was like, oh yeah, Man on Fire is the best. Just real quick, we'll get into it. I don't know if you guys remember Man on Fire. He's trying to find the people who kidnapped Dakota Fanning. He's got one guy tied to a car, and he's explaining. He goes, "This is a plastic canister." Trying to get into my Denzel. He goes, "Plastic canister."
Yeah.
You go, criminals use it. They put drugs in it. And they shove it up to hide it. You go, this is C4. You go, this is a remote detonator. You go, cheap watch. Put all this together, you got a bomb. That's what's up your behind right now. And then at the end, he goes, let me. What do you wish? What do you wish for? I could give anything you wish for. He goes, what do I wish for? I wish you had more time. And then he walks away and he blows up. It's like, Denzel, you are the coolest. So my mother-in-law, you know, I get it. That's what I'm trying to say. Denzel's the man.
Yeah, you're also attracted to. Never mind. It would be funny if there's C4, if you like miscalculated and there was just like a little bit of C4. So just kind of,
whoa.
That's not what I was thinking, but just pop the inside of this guy's rectum. So the guy doesn't explode. There's no like big fire, but Denzel's walking away. You know how they walk away from the
like
fire?
The slow motion.
He's walking away, and instead of a giant fire, it's just a guy writhing around, bleeding out of his butt. Slow motion.
I like the part where he's like, I have a very specific set of skills.
Yep. Seth thinks every action movie is Taken. He has Taken derangement syndrome.
He goes, that's the one where Dakota Fanning's following you two in foreign countries. There's
like all the aliens come and like Tom Cruise is there.
So Kate brought up a good point. Last year or earlier this year, everybody was like, you know, men think about the Roman Empire at least once a week, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like, what's your Roman Empire? And everybody was talking about it. And then all of a sudden,
my Roman Empire is really stinky farts. Women were all sharing what theirs were.
You think about that once a week? Only?
My Roman Empire is SBD when they come out silent, but I don't know why, like a Valley Girl talking about
Valley Girl
farts.
Valley Girl talking about farts.
My Roman Empire is the really juicy ones. This is like, what? Tiffany, what? Tiffany, what?
Tiffany, what? Oh my God. Get out of my mind.
My Roman Empire is when it sounds like a drum.
My Roman Empire is when sometimes it's like a dirt bike. And then at the end, just a tiny, tiny micro turn. That's my Roman Empire. I don't know why. Tiffany, what?
Lord.
So stupid.
I mean, that is an SNL skit if I've ever heard one. You just do two normal, you know, my Roman Empire is baked goods. They're so delicious. And you're like, oh, you're so bad. That's bad. My Roman Empire my Roman Empire is Ryan Gosling, and then the next one you go, okay, it's gonna sound weird, but my Roman Empire is SBDs.
SBD.
Go, what? Silent but deadly. And then she rips one at the end.
You know, like when you're in an Uber and you get in the Uber and it's really late and it's just you and the Uber driver. And then all of a sudden the Uber driver starts to faint and he starts to feel like his nose hairs are being singed out. And he's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And you're like, SBD, that's my Roman Empire.
I like her gaslighting the Uber driver. Oh my God. Your car smells so disgusting. Wasn't a 1-star review.
Yeah.
I won't give you a 5-star unless you admit it was you.
My Roman Empire is when you have to change the upholstery in your car because it was so rank.
Okay. This
sorry.
So the reason I bring it up is, do you think it was Gladiator? Kate brought up the good point. She goes, do you think it was Gladiator 2's like guerrilla marketing to get everybody thinking about the Roman Empire, and then all of a sudden, you know, a teaser for Gladiator 2 happens, and it's like, oh my gosh, I guess Ridley Scott at least thinks about the Roman Empire.
Okay.
That would be really funny if Ridley Scott, a 97-year-old movie director, was like, we should do.
How old is Ridley Scott? Because
I think we should do
Alien came out in what, 76?
Oh, he's really almost 90. He's like 87, I think.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It is possible.
Because Gladiator 2, filming began in May of 2023, so production was already earlier, and then the My Roman Empire meme was like late 2023.
Listen, we could do a whole episode on like marketing because I really do like kind of nerd out about this stuff. But Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, that was just a marketing gimmick for the Montgomery Ward like Christmas catalog. Cool. They just like came up with this jingle to sell more Christmas stuff, and they nailed it. And now we sing it every single year.
That's really great.
So anyway, Kate brought that up, and I was like, that is really funny. And I actually really hope that they're like, hey, let's just pump out this Roman Empire stuff for a few months.
I really have to agree that is a genius bit or just thought idea from Kate. Yeah. Mad props to Kate. Yeah. I also have said multiple times that I do believe the movie Gladiator is at least 50% responsible for why our generation of men, like all these women on TikTok, they're all asking guys between 25 and 45.
Yeah.
And we all either like were kids or young adults when Gladiator came out, or grew up watching it. Mm-hmm. And so like it's one of the most iconic films.
Absolutely.
Period, full stop of all time.
Yeah. I used the quote in my very first sermon that I preached.
Whoa.
What we do in life echoes in eternity. I go, this is as good as anything in the Bible.
I thought you were going to say, you sold me giraffes. I used that quote.
I will say, okay, so I'm going to go watch it opening day. I'm pumped for it. However, I'm a little nervous.
Uh-oh.
And I think that we maybe have talked about this, but I just want to get this out. And then we'll talk to Seth. Seth, we'll bring you on 45 minutes. We'll talk about Gladiator and farts, and then we'll maybe mention your stuff. Stop pushing me, okay?
You can also just jump in and riff with us.
You can do that too. He's gone.
He just disappeared.
He's back.
That was my entire childhood, was him doing that.
So, I've watched Gladiator 15 to 20 times in my life. I think that's a safe estimate over a 24-year period. I've watched it at least once every other year, right? Mm-hmm. I think some people have watched Gladiator 2 to 3 times in their life, and they say Gladiator is the best movie I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And then you start talking about it, and you start remembering how awesome it is, and you are like, Joaquin Phoenix is incredible in this movie. And just as a side note,
Joker 2.
Exactly. And they're going to bring him, because Joker 2 was such a success, they're going to try to figure out a way to bring him back into Gladiator 2. It'll be great. As the Joker. I don't know.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Sequel we deserve.
Just as a side note, the King, I keep telling, every time we watch these movies, I'm like, that's the guy from, that's Dumbledore. The king that dies in the beginning, it's Dumbledore. And then I go, Kate, this guy had an incredible late in life run.
Yeah.
He's Gladiator. He's Dumbledore. He's the priest in Count of Monte Cristo. And he's also in one more thing. So there's like a 4 or 5 year run right before he dies that he is just in like so many iconic movies.
That's like kind of something that like Hollywood does intentionally, that they like find these career British theater actors. Yeah. And they're like, okay, well, you're in your 50s, 60s. We want like an unnamed, unknown old guy. All of our Hollywood old guys will be too big of a name.
You don't want to like quote unquote steal the screen, but we need like an incredible actor for this.
Totally. Anyway, sorry. So that's an interesting phenomenon.
That was Kumail Nanjiani's dad in The Big Sick. Was like this like huge Pakistani actor.
Really? That's cool.
When he told his mom that like this is who they got to play. He was like, I don't know how to equate it. It's like Robert De Niro in America. He goes, it's not even that, because some people don't know who Robert De Niro is. It's like he's to Pakistan, he's even bigger. So it's like this really great actor, but to Americans, you're like, oh yeah, you got like,
you got a
good Pakistan actor. It's like no, he's like
Pakistani guy.
Yeah. So anyway, But you think about Gladiator, you talk about it, and you go, this is an incredible movie, and you build it up in your mind, and then you go and you watch the sequel. And because it's a sequel, you're going to automatically compare it to the first Gladiator. Yeah. And it is amazing. It won Best Picture. It's one of the movies that you're like, this should have won Best Picture. It has like critic and audience appeal.
Yeah.
It is an incredible movie. But you build it up in your mind as like the creme de la creme of all movies.
To Edgar. Creme de
Edgar. Exactly.
Yes.
And then for me, I see a gladiator riding in on a rhino, and I go, please don't ruin Gladiator for me.
Yeah.
I beg of you, please do not ruin Russell Crowe and Gladiator. But I'm like,
it's Pedro Pascal, right?
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal is, I think, sort of a...
He's like the old...
He's like an antagonist. He's going to have to fight Paul Mescal.
Yeah, he's like a rival, the old rival. Gladiator.
Is that the Razor Crest that you were just showing us? Is that what that was?
Crest, it's the freaking Naboo N1 fighter, you dummy.
Oh, I forgot that the Razor Crest gets blown up at like the beginning of the second season.
I don't know what you guys are
That's
talking
really
about.
cool.
A bunch of nerds. Anyway, so I'm pumped for it, but I'm nervous, and I think it's gonna be awesome. But I also am like. It's just tough to pull off a sequel 20 years later when you've built it up in your mind as the greatest movie ever.
It's so hard because like Gladiator has that early 2000s pacing and like that crazy early 2000s like real special effects and like
it's a little bit of it's a blend of great practical effects and then you're like filling in gaps on the Coliseum. Like I think CG is at its best when it is doing backgrounds, background stuff. When I see a rhino that is CG and I go,
yeah, it's rough.
That's definitely a CGI rhino. If you can get an actor to ride a rhino, let's do it, man.
Why not?
Let's bleeping go. But
yeah,
bring him in on an elephant. You know, you can't do a rhino. Bring him in on an elephant.
I'm just hoping I'm not going in with any expectations. I do hope that it's good. If it's not good, whatever. I'm gonna have to watch it thinking like this is not a Gladiator sequel. Because it's not really anyway.
So Kate and I kind of talked about this. I'm like, if there's still story that like Ridley Scott's like, I still want to do Gladiator style. He's like, I think about the Roman Empire at least once a week. I got to tell more stories. He deserves, as a filmmaker, to tell the story that he wants to tell. And in my head, I was like, just do another Roman thing. But then I was like, you can't just do another Roman Gladiator movie and be like, this is other gladiators coming winter 2024. You can't do that. You do have to do
The Other Gladiator.
You have to do Gladiator 2, or you can't like set it 100 years later and you're like, well, this isn't like, this is like gladiators in the Byzantine Empire, not the Roman Empire. Yeah. So Byzantine gladiators coming.
What was it that they called the Michael B. Jordan Rocky movies?
Creed.
Yeah, that was like a well executed iteration of kind of the concept you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
You kind of and honestly, they did a really good job of like writing Sylvester Stallone out so that it's like, the story is about Creed, right? Yeah. And then pretty quickly, you're in the Rocky universe. But the movie is about Michael B. Jordan and just like, that kind of.
I think it's true. I think
that's a really great point, Seth.
It is a good point. Love Creed.
You can log off now. No, I'm just kidding.
Anyway, I could talk all day about Gladiator, so I should stop.
Yeah. So we'll have to. We'll give you an update. So next week you'll get an update of the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight from Carl Champagne.
Yep.
We'll have another. We're calling him Crazy Carl's. He's gonna jump in just for like 10 or 15 minutes. We'll have a Crazy Carl. And
I love it.
I really hope Mike Tyson knocks out Jake Paul.
It would be cool. It would be cool. It's just,
And I hope,
he's 60.
speaking of Creed, I hope that Mike Tyson doesn't die in the ring. That's my other thought. This is supposed to be an exhibition. That's like, they're going to be like yelling from Tyson's corner.
Mike Tyson looks like he's about, like, just as a person, he looks like he's about to do homicide.
Yeah, I was going to say, he looks like, someone, who could commit murder. Yeah. And he might tonight. Live on Netflix. Or be the victim of it. All right, let's get in. We're going to talk about producing. We've kind of like skated around this idea with Ben. We try not to give him too much talking parts, but
Ben's mom, I'm always asking Jesse, please. I'm always asking Jesse, please, can we let Ben host instead?
Oh my god.
Can we please let Ben be the star of the show? And Ben's mom, Jesse is always saying no.
That is the exact opposite of what Darius texts me.
So if you'd like to have me over to your house for dinner, my wife and I are free.
So, Seth, movie producing, music producing, and I was like, Ben's gonna enjoy this, and I kind of, if I can help it, I'm gonna sit back and just kind of like listen to you guys nerd out about,
as you should,
something I don't understand. But music producing, Seth. You got into music producing a long time ago, so much so that you like helped Darius and I produce a summer camp rap. It was like our most well like produced video. Usually Darius and I just like put a crappy camera with an 8mm tape in it, no microphone. It's grainy. And then we just relied on us
cans
being
of footage
funny.
sitting around.
Yeah. But then we were like, Seth, can you actually help us with a song? And it sounds pretty good. Like,
I don't think I've ever watched or heard this.
No, everybody, you have summer camp. It's good.
Everybody.
So many memories.
So many memories. That's right. That was, Seth, was that your hook? I can't remember.
I not that I distinctly remember. I remember you guys writing it based off of a beat that I had given you guys.
That's right.
That's it. You did the beat, and then Darius came up with the hook, which was summer camp, so many memories. Summer camp, you were best friend to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot that was how that went.
We write on the fly too. That's where we try not to be prepared in life.
Everyone that I've shown that video to is like, this isn't that funny, but it is pretty good music.
We can't do
this
both.
Is really good.
Yeah.
My older brother, who's like the most critical person I've ever met in my life, just this week, I was like, I ran a mile in 9 minutes this week. It's like a minute faster than last week. And he goes, it's probably just your body remembering what it used to be able to do. You haven't made any progress this week. And I was like,
try doing that with a 45-pound pack on your back in the desert.
But I literally did make progress this week. Why are you saying that? And when he watched the rap video, he was like, he didn't say anything but, this is really good. So
that was 10 years ago, maybe.
That's insane.
That's
so stupid.
That was years ago.
Yeah, wild. So you've been in the game, doing some serious biz, is what I'm saying. Now I'm gonna let you talk a little bit. How did you get? Because it's, I guess. I lied. I'm going to talk a little bit more. I'm curious because I think the natural path is I'm going to play music, right?
Yeah.
And then which you did. You were in like jazz band and also a really good Guitar Hero. I probably tell people at least twice a year. I was like, when Guitar Hero 2 came out, my friend Seth Giles was on the leaderboard, like the world leaderboard for a short time.
Number 31.
So you were good. You're good at music is what I'm trying to say. So how did you get into it and what like diverts the path?
Yeah. So it's a really interesting, like, It's a really interesting thing for me, music specifically, because my experience with music as just as an individual is like really, really tied to my relationship with my dad as a young kid.
Lightning
And
Rod Giles.
Lightning Rod Giles. So as a kid, like just playing guitar was like a way that I connected with my dad. It was a way that it was an easy way for me and my dad to spend time together. It was an easy way for me to get my dad to pay attention to me. It was an easy way for me to get some approval from my dad. And like, honestly, when I look back at it, like that is like that's kind of the seed that existed. And I think that I had some natural talent. Like there is like a talent of rudiment that Trevor and I both share. And there just was always guitars around. And growing up, so like I ended up being in band, and
we listen to a lot of good music. Like I think that's one of the biggest things about people who is musically quote unquote talented and who's not is how much good music are you exposed to, and can you watch someone also play that music in front of you? That just like really juices up that. Like,
I remember
early childhood like development of that.
I remember being at the Central Washington State Fair with Darius, and we asked like a guy who's playing at the gazebo. He's like good guitar player. He's like, "We got any song requests?" We're like, "You do Chuck Berry?" And he was like, "You guys guitar players?" We're like, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I knew it. Here we go, Johnny, be good." Quick aside, your dad, he does have incredible taste in music, and is a lot of like the blues stuff and the stuff that I know is because I also hung around your dad. And then my dad also has some similar tastes as well. Does he ever surprise you with really bad musical choices? Is he ever like, "Hey, you should listen to this. This is awesome." And then you're like, "What? This is not Stevie Ray Vaughan."
No, he has like a pretty predictable taste in music, but although it's very predictable, it's insanely refined, and like he's refined it more and more and more over the years. It's just a little mystery, I think, for like that I'm trying to wrap my mind around, like my own dad and some other old people. Like your dad Lenny Kravitz, bro.
He does. We listened to a lot of American Woman by Lenny Kravitz early on, which is a great song, a great cover. But he showed me like some cult classic comedies that like go down as like the greatest comedies ever, right? So it's like, Monty Python, The Holy Grail, and Strange Brew, and some of these, and early like SNL. It was like, and then I don't know if it's just in his later years or whatever, but he's like trying to get me to watch CW shows. He's like, Supergirl show's really good. I'm like, "Dad, how can you like be a fan of Monty Python and The Flash in the same breath?"
And DC Legend of Tomorrow.
He goes, "This DC studio, they're really putting out some good stuff." Okay, Dad.
Marvel should pay attention.
So, okay, that was just me trying to work out my own theory. I think
every once in a while, Dad will show me something that is like a good technical guitar player who has no soul, and that's a similar thing to me. And I'm like, don't you know that this like music has no soul in it? Or at least, obviously, that's my perception, and he enjoys it for a different reason, for like a technical aspect of it. Yeah. And that for me is always surprising. That I'm like, I don't think this isn't like moving at all. But
it
doesn't
like. I remember we were at a concert one time, and we asked the guy, just did like, from my eyes and ears, it was like, "Oh, that was a cool solo," and then you're like, "Yeah, I mean, he's just like straight going through." What is it called? When
he's like arpeggiating, or he's doing like, what do you call it? Like sweeps.
What's the thing that you like go through scales, the different like scales? Thank you. Yeah. It was just like blatant scales that he was just like doing inside of a song.
My favorite type of guitar player is when they're mouthing it they're singing it too, like that's coming from deep within their heart.
That's a very John Mayer.
One Mayer.
Anyway, so
sorry, Seth.
listening to music,
Okay.
being around your dad. That's
Yeah, I can give you a little bit more of a segue there. So I played a lot growing up, and I honestly I wasn't a huge practicer. I played upright bass, and I was somewhat of a practicer, enough to compete, and enough to know my parts, but I wasn't a huge practicer. And I was only ever really exposed to the music that my dad listened to. And then in late high school, I started discovering these artists that had, gotten popular on MySpace, and then had, they were kind of the forerunners of the Spotify era. And I was just really, 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 I was like, you can have a whole orchestra on your computer.
right.
You can imagine the way that a bass line sounds, and you can open up this piece of software and invent an instrument, essentially, telling me that I can, if I like the way a note sounds on a song, I can record it into my computer and then pitch it differently 150 ways, and I can take all of these older mediums of music, and I can augment them basically in an infinite number of ways on this piece of software that has an infinite number of tracks, that has an infinite number of, and I can do tempo changes. And you're telling me that I can build a symphony, and there's this thing called a vocoder that is it's a combination of a voice and a synthesizer at the same time. And just it was legitimately so mind blowing for me. And I remember the first time I used GarageBand, and I was going through these loops, and I was like, dude, I'm Mozart. This is it.
I've done it.
Yeah. And it's funny because
Mozart in the flesh.
Yeah, dude, I am Walt Disney.
Thank you.
And speaking of that, Kanye was a huge cultural and musical influence when I was growing up. And I remember when I first started getting into music production, I'd never listened to any really pop culture music. I'd only listened to blues and jazz. And that album Yeezus had come out, which in retrospect had a terrible influence on me emotionally, and had a terrible influence on me psychologically, but was really inspiring creatively.
It was probably also reflecting things that you were processing as well.
Yeah,
for sure.
I just put it on when I work out. I don't look at
I was a youth pastor when it came out, and so I was like, I think this shouldn't exist when it came out.
I actually agree. It's Kanye could have stopped a long time ago, and it would have been it would have had John Bellion, the greatest producer of all time, has a lyric in one of his older songs where he says, "The teachers gave me nothing, but Kanye gave me college."
College Dropout is maybe the most insane hip hop album of all time.
It's really good, and I look at it if you don't know who John Bellion is, I don't really know how much I believe that you're a music producer. But John Bellion, amongst a band of other people, is amongst the people who kind of had the opportunity to carry the torch in terms of pushing music production forward and being able to decide what goes into mainstream writing. But there's a guy named Benny Blanco, and he talks about how he used to listen to Kanye records. He would go into his DAW, he would scoop out the different drum components of Kanye records and recreate Kanye drum beats as a way of practicing producing and sampling. And
That's
era
it's doing scale. That's crazy. I've never heard of anything like that. That's literally running scales as a musician.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, yeah, it's just a different instrument, and it's a different medium. But that era of Kanye, that was what we needed from Kanye. And then everything after that, unfortunately, is just him having a lot of mental breakdowns.
Yeah. You think he's okay, but he's not okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
dude.
think
I never thought he was okay.
I don't know why that was the most Inigo Montoya thing I've ever heard you say. I never thought he was okay.
So I just was really inspired by all of that, and there was, I could go through and name the people that kind of influenced me, but ultimately I was inspired by kind of the blog era of hip hop.
Yeah.
And I was inspired by John Mayer, because John Mayer was doing something in pop in the mainstream that was derivative of the music that I grew up on, and that was a big deal. Like Vultures and Continuum were a big deal for me. Like musically speaking. And it's funny, I listened to like my original song yesterday, and then I listened to this song called Automatic Yes by Zedd and John Mayer, and I was like, oh, I suck. Like I legitimately, like, there's a reason that John Mayer is John Mayer, and I make spreadsheets for a living. Like, and
I
like,
do.
That's okay.
It is interesting to, like, from my
John Mayer can
perspective,
never make spreadsheets. What a schmuck.
from my perspective, it's like comedy in movies, but you have these, alt comics that are just crushing, and then all of a sudden they kind of get a little bit of mainstream. They're bringing the alt comedy like into the mainstream, and you're like, oh, dang, that's awesome. Like you're making it palatable for the masses, and same with movies, right? We were just talking about Gladiator. Like some art movies are like critically acclaimed movies. You're like, this is mostly garbage. Like, I can understand classical music. I'm like, man, this is crazy talent. I'm not banging to to any Mozart or Beethoven, right? Like, I mostly try to lock those down for like Jeopardy knowledge. That's like my drive.
Which you are weirdly good at.
But it's good, right? Like, I'm like, man, this is insane. And you're like, Beethoven wrote this when he was deaf. That's really cool.
Yeah,
that was Beethoven, right?
It's cool.
He was deaf at the end. Yeah. So like
He
producing
cut off his
just
ear
kind of
before he wrote Starry Night.
yes, classic. I was gonna say so producing just kind of it's this world of like untapped creativity that drew you to it, right? Because like a stand-up bass, again, you can be like, you can take a simple instrument and you can master it. And I remember I've talked about it before, but I was at a Bob Dylan concert and I was just I was mesmerized by his drummer, and nobody's doing anything crazy inside of a Bob Dylan song, right? It's like, you're not like listening to Bob Dylan because of the drums, but like there was something that this guy was doing with like simple beats and rhythms that I was like, this guy's insane. Like, so you can master an instrument, but you are technically limited, right? Stand-up bass has 4 strings, right? Only a certain amount. They don't have frets. I was about to sound stupid, guys.
Well, we would have called you out. No. There is still only a certain amount of space
that you can play, right? And there's only a certain amount of, I mean, it's a bass guitar, right? So there's only a certain amount of tones and pitches that you can hit on the bass guitar, but then you put it into a computer and you can do. I remember watching the commentary on. This is the thing that I miss most, I think, about DVDs. I freaking love commentaries.
So good. Gosh, I love DVD extras.
But Looper with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis, the guy who did he's like, I want to kind of do this like futuristic, like kind of post-apocalyptic score, and he is recording like noises, like ambient noises, and he would throw a garbage can in a garage and record it, and then put it into his keyboard and start like, and then you'd break glass and record it and put it into his keyboard, and then he scored with all of these like crazy noises, but he then turned that into a musical score, which wouldn't be possible without computers and producing and all of this like kind of untapped creativity. And I was like, that's freaking legit.
Yeah,
really cool.
It's really cool. It's really interesting stuff, and like that just was more. I'm sure Ben can relate to this. It just was more alluring to me, and it was like, it was a deviation from what I was familiar with. And it's funny because like, I was pretty I was pretty saturated in like what I was like what I grew up doing, but I got into producing music like right after high school. So I like it was at a point in my life where I wasn't really like jamming on the guitar at home because I usually was trying to like avoid being home. And then I also like didn't have jazz band practice every day. So I was like, oh, if I get a laptop, it's a way that I can engage with this part of my brain, and I also can like, I can take a new direction. And it just was way more cool. And, they're obviously, it's pretty realistic to like move to Nashville and make a career out of being an instrumentalist. And it's not really realistic to like be like, oh, I'm gonna generate an income with this skill. But to me, honestly just didn't have the vocational wisdom to think about it on that level. And I also was just like, when I think about it, I kind of think about like there's three categories. There's like talent, passion, and discipline. And I would say I was always like more passionate than I was talented or disciplined. I would say I was like 9 out of 10 passionate, 5 out of 10 disciplined, and 4 out of 10 talented, realistically.
I'm 9 out of 10 talented, 9 out of 10 passionate, 2 out of 10 disciplined.
When you say 4 out of 10 talented, do you mean like as a producer or as a musician overall or as a
music? It's a pretty low grade.
It's a pretty low grade. That's an interesting. I mean, I'm not even disagreeing.
I would say I'm a 4. I would say I'm a 4 out of 10. Or am I just like,
dude? If you've ever met somebody that's a 10 out of 10, you know.
Well, but 4 out of 10 and 10 out of 10 is a really big gap. So I actually was just like thinking about this theologically. Some people, kind of talk about God and they're like, how can you, this concept of you're like, you can't handle like God's righteousness, right? Like he's so good that if you were in his presence, you can't handle it. You feel like, I don't even know, like you just feel like you're not good enough, right? And people are like, that's so terrible. And I was thinking, I go, yeah, I understand, but like I'm a guitar player, and if I like was playing guitar, well, actually, I play bass when my friend was leading worship on an acoustic guitar, but his vocation was a concert bassist. And I go, I don't want to play because I'm going quarter notes, like, doom, 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 doom. And he's like, hey, can you do this? I go, no, I can't.
Not at all.
Like, I feel so unworthy to be on the same stage as you, right? And you like look at other musicians and you're like, I don't deserve to be in your presence. Like, I don't deserve to say I'm a guitar player. And I'm like, to me, it makes sense, right? Where like, I think that makes sense to me that if you are then in the presence of somebody who's so good, you're like, I don't deserve to be in your presence because I just am not that good. Like that's just the bottom line.
I think a lot of us probably maybe more just in the church world, but hopefully some people outside of the church world have experienced this. When you play with somebody, you play music with somebody and you're like, this person is a 9 out of 10. Or maybe even a 10 out of 10, although most of us don't usually meet the people who are like 10 out of 10 musicians, like talent-wise. But, you're playing with somebody who's like upper echelon and you're playing with them and you're like, holy crap, I don't deserve to play with you. And then they'll look at you and be like, oh, I love what you just did.
Yeah,
Do that
totally.
again.
Totally.
Or you just know that you don't deserve to play. And they'll be like, hey, come play. It doesn't matter. Just come play with us, dude. We're just hanging out. We're just having fun. And that, I think, is the feeling of being with Jesus. Like, that's a crazy analogy. Like, that's the feeling. I've also had the experience of people who are like, no, stop. Why are you doing that? We're doing this. You're not on our level. You just please quit.
Yeah.
Like that's the worst feeling. And if God was like that, if you're explaining that to people and they're expecting God to be like, you're so unworthy. I hate you. You're a worm. But that's the reality is that God is like, oh yeah, you definitely.
Yeah. I love what you're doing. Yeah.
You bring nothing to the table, buddy, but bring it to the table anyway.
But bring it. Yeah.
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 Love that, dude.
So
I would say Seth is a 7 or an 8, probably at least an 8, or sorry, probably an 8 and not a 7. Talent wise, the 9 and 10 people on the talent scale are like John Batiste, Charlie Puth, Mozart, like
John Mayer.
I would say John Mayer's like a 9 out of 10 talent, not a 10 out of 10 talent. John Mayer doesn't have perfect pitch. John Mayer,
Jacob Collier.
Jacob Collier.
He might.
Jacob Collier, yeah, he's a genius. John Mayer, I do think, is like, he's a 10 out of 10 songwriter, to be fair. So,
Yeah.
but yes,
yeah,
I think 4 out of 10. You can believe that. Like, I'm not trying to like.
Stephen Curtis Chapman.
You know who's a 9 out of 10 musician, or maybe even a 10 out of 10 is Lincoln Brewster. Not in terms of creativity, but in terms of like skill, proficiency, and musical aptitude.
Sammy Castillo.
Hey.
Sammy Castillo, he's a 9 out of 10 talent. Easy, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would love to hear like some of Ben's input on who you would rank in like the upper echelon, or people who you might look at them and you're like, this person is like maybe mid-level talent but high-level discipline and high-level output quality. Like kind of some people who you think are great in different ways.
5 out of 10 talent, 10 out of 10 work ethic.
You guys, the names you were listing off, I would 100% agree with. If there's just one person that I'm a huge fan of that I'll throw in there that's not, it sounds rude to say they're not super talented, but Tyler, the Creator, I think is very disciplined and very passionate. When it comes to talent, that guy will he'll just sing on his own records, and technically it's not good. He doesn't sing very well, but his songwriting and his like passion in the music, you're like, I'm all in.
There's some Eminem songs that he like chooses to sing, and I'm like, well, that's not good. That's not. You could have gotten anybody in the world to sing, and you chose to do it.
What's cool though,
but the song is still a banger.
Yeah,
Mariah Carey said no for obvious reasons.
So Tyler was kind of like a not liked for a while because he'd do a lot of crazy stuff and make fun of people and say the wildest things about celebrities. And when he started to take his music very seriously, he was like, all right, I'm gonna make a legit record. If that I don't however you would categorize it, but he was like, I'm gonna make a legit record, and then no one wanted to work with him, so he's like, all right, I'll just sing my own stuff. And then he like kind of blew up, got nominated for Grammys, and then he could have been like all these people who like rejected him and be like, hey, you want to come back? But he's like, no, I'm just gonna keep singing on my own records because you guys didn't want to come sing on mine, so I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
Anyways, I thought that was interesting because he just released a new album and he did kind of like behind the scenes of himself recording and like making it. I'm like, man, this guy doesn't sing very well, but he can make it work.
It's a super interesting concept of like how much do you need out of each thing to quote unquote be successful, and I think the passion and discipline trumps the talent
big time.
And so
nepotism also helps.
I'm just so
it's 5 categories that I've
nepotist.
Wait, what are the?
I don't understand why we're talking about being attracted to our relatives. So I think there's 5 categories. I think the categories are opportunity, support.
You're talking 5 categories for success.
5 categories that I think you can like if I was like Scooter Braun and I was trying to like break a new artist, I would break it into 5 categories, and this is how
I would starve them.
I was gonna say if you're not in the industry, you're like, if I was Scooter Braun, this is how I'd break a new artist. I'd pile drive him. Scooter Braun.
But there's opportunity, support, talent, passion, and discipline, and I think each of those have subcategories. But I think generally, like those are the 5 things you would have to assess if you're in the position to, if you're looking at yourself, or if you're in the position to kind of help somebody take a step forward, not just in like music or entertainment, but in everything.
Yeah,
and that's why
there's a ton of overlap.
That's why like I'd say for like blue collar jobs, and blue collar jobs are awesome. Like blue collar jobs, you don't need a ton of like support, or you need a little bit of support, a little bit of opportunity. You need the discipline to show up and do it every day. You don't need to be that talented.
You don't have to be passionate about it, really.
You don't have to.
Certainly don't have to be passionate about it.
Well, you got to be like 2 out of 10 passionate about it, so that you'll keep showing up.
Obviously, there's a wide range of blue collar jobs. Some you do have to be quite talented.
For sure. And I'm not using that as like
derogatory.
Dude, I'm a working class guy. Like I'm not saying that in any sort of negative way.
You and Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
She said she's a working class guy.
Yeah. So anyway, like that's why most people work regular blue collar or regular white collar jobs, because those have lower barriers to entry. And you can be Justin Bieber when you're 9 years old, but if you don't have an insanely supportive mom who's like taking videos of you and like booking gigs for you constantly, then like no one's ever gonna know.
The opportunity would have never presented itself, right? Like
probably for the
there are lots of, not Justin Bieber is one of the most talented people alive, but not to knock him. But yeah, there are a lot of Justin Biebers.
No, dude, simply being in Chicago and being around certain people, I was just presented with more opportunities than. Yeah, I just am not rubbing shoulders with the highfalutin like I used to here in Yakima.
Hey!
No, sorry. But like
I can play the flute as high as anybody.
Like this is very like low level, but the person that we were renting the space for our church like produces these things called oh man, now I'm like Music Tree. I think now I'm totally blowing it. But it's
Music Tree?
It's like a Midwest thing anyway, but they recorded a thing with who's the girl that everybody loves and I don't like? Barbie.
Billie Eilish.
Billie Eilish. They like recorded a thing with her right before she broke, like, and that's just a trend for them. And I'm just like talking with the owner and like main guy of this and Audio Tree. Audio Tree is what it's called. It's really awesome. And then I'm talking with like his like sound producer that is like on all of these like albums, and I just wouldn't have that opportunity normally in Yakima, right? Like, so just being around certain people is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, the opportunity is, it's interesting because like the way music was 100 years ago, like Johnny Cash started playing music and could relatively quickly, just by gigging, make like kind of a living playing music. And the economy even was such that, like, anyway. Well, today, when we say make it in the music industry, we mean like become wealthy in the music industry. Right. Not just be a working class musician.
I actually think we need to kind of like bang the drum a little bit for the working class entertainer, I would say.
I agree.
Because I like, when I was kicking around being a comedian, they're like, oh, like you think you're going to be famous? Like you're going to get a Netflix special. It wasn't a Netflix at the time. It was a Comedy Central special.
Your dad is a little harsh.
Like, maybe, probably not. But if I like put in effort to go and book comedy clubs, like
you'll get somewhere.
I could make 50 or 60 grand a year, like working as a comedian.
Yeah.
I could absolutely do that. I'd have to put in the time and effort to book gigs, and like there's a whole thing to it, but you can be a working musician and nobody can know your name, and you could just play weddings and make 80 grand a year. Like that's not an uncommon thing. And if you want to do that, like if you like playing music and you want to get paid for it, that's actually a very reasonable way to go.
Oh yeah, dude. Seth, what?
And then you try to make your own music on the side.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear your music at the wedding.
Are we? It feels like we're just. I watched Walk the Line, and you watched The Wedding Crashers, and we both just based our
Wedding Singer.
Singer. So sorry, Wedding Crashers is the one with the.
I don't watch that filth.
Vince Vaughn. Seth, what is it that like inspires and gives you passion to do producing now?
That's a very generous question. Yeah, so growing up, when I was a young adult, I thought that I would enjoy music more if I pursued it vocationally, and I thought that there was like a way things had to be, and there was like I thought that there was a narrative that I had to build, and there was like a story that had to unfold about me and like pursuing my passion. And like the truth is that for me, like those 5 categories that we talked about, they just weren't really like stacked that high. Like the opportunity and the support were like minimal. They were there from like certain aspects of my life, but they were minimal. And then like I was like pretty talented, but like not super amazing. And just like, so for a long time, I really wanted to be good. Like that I can say. I told you this before, Trevor. I really did want to make uncontrived music. That was something that was like that was like a goal of mine. And like looking back on it, that might have been my biggest goal. My biggest goal might have been to just do something original. And I was like, I'm going to make my own niche. Like, and it's like, you might be able to do that, but there might be only 10 people in your audience if you make your own niche. And so like for a long time I was inspired by, I honestly think what was largely like an insecure part of me that was like, I need to do something that gets me approval.
Yeah.
And then like I ended up stepping away, like stepping back from doing music. I took all of my music down off Spotify. So this song that will come out, this will be the only song. I have like 0 listeners right now.
What's it gonna be under? Is it?
It's called Nostalgia Inc. Nostalgia INK period. So and like I'm not putting this song out. I'll actually tell you like what inspired this specific song and like why this song is like happening. And I don't, obviously I don't have like an online following, and I don't really expect anybody to listen to it. The only reason this song is coming out, I am dating this girl and her name's Amelia, and she's really amazing. And the first date that we went on was October 20th of 2022, and every month we celebrate like a month. We call it month anniversaries, and every month we do like a month anniversary. I'm not kidding you. I made this song Vulnerable. I literally made it after our first date. Like we'd been friends for a while, and I've like thought really highly of her, and I finally asked her on a date, and I just saw everything that I value in like a healthy person as far as like a life partner goes. I saw every single one of those things in her. And I just was like, I couldn't believe how like overwhelmingly lovable she was. Like for me specifically, like it's like I couldn't like invent a better person that like is more suitable for me. Like if you like gave me the ability to like create a person that I thought would be perfect for me, it wouldn't be as good as Amelia. And like this song, just like I was inspired to make the song after our first date. And so she doesn't even know that I'm uploading it, and it's going to come out on our 25th month anniversary.
Wow.
Nice. You dog.
Real quick, what's it called? What's it under again?
Oh yeah, Nostalgia Inc. period, and then Vulnerable.
It's INK period. Yeah, Nostalgia.
Oh, Inc. Like ink.
Yeah. So yeah, like this song was inspired. Like I was in a place in life where I was like, okay, like music isn't something I have to like do to be good at, and music isn't something I have to do for approval. Like this was maybe the first time in my adult life that I had ever made a song because I was genuinely inspired. I had the time, I had the resources to make the song, and I just felt like making a song. And I just like I dropped Amelia off at her car after our date, and I like literally, I'm not kidding. I like as soon as she got out of my car, I was singing this song. Like I had the hook. Like this song was like birthed in my heart, like while I was hanging out with her.
Nice.
It just was a sincere moment of being inspired. And like I have a lot of songs that are like they're kind of like prayers. Like I was going through them yesterday. I really have a lot of them, but they're just like me singing about my feelings to God, like, and I've literally never showed them to anybody. It's just something I do when I'm in like a spiritual and emotional place. Is I go and I just like make a little beat and I like sing my feelings in kind of like a prayer form. And I've literally never ever shown any of that to anybody. But that's just like that's probably honestly people would probably like that stuff more than anything I've ever liked. Because it's just a lot more sincere. So,
well, I was gonna say, man, I just listened to the song, and just for people, I don't know if this is a fair comp, just to give people a little bit. It's kind of like a newer version, I think, of like what Linkin Park would do. There's like some rap, there's some like
without the
alternative
suicide
rock sort of stuff. Jeez, Ben, trying to be uplifting here.
I'm sorry.
What'd you say, Ben?
We're sorry. We're sorry to Chester.
I said it's Linkin Park, but without the suicide.
It's much more uplifting. But so I don't know if that's a fair comp. That's kind of what, just because of it has like an alternative rock vibe and like some rap elements to it. But I feel like the sincerity and genuineness I feel out of this song more than like your past like rap stuff. I enjoyed all of your songs. I'm like, oh man, these are all like pretty sick, but they just kind of felt like a rap song. You know what I mean? Like it's not to discredit what you did before, but there is something that feels different about this song, which is super interesting because I didn't know any of the stuff that you just said.
Yeah, that's why I took all of that old music down. Is I want something that is like ageable. Like I want to put music out and like this sounds kind of funny, but like I want to put music out that like isn't going to make my grandkids uncomfortable. And like I want to put music out that
good
like
good.
Looking at you,
I want to
Madonna.
put
What about your grandparents uncomfortable? Grandkids, you're like, all right, these guys are cool. I'm like, there's a little part of me that's like, what if Grandma Roberts picks up Rat Race? Oh, that's gonna be a tough conversation.
That's funny.
That's awesome. Okay, we are overtime. Seth, this was awesome. I hope
Super cool.
that people listening enjoyed, this kind of a little bit of our goal is just to bring people on who are passionate about stuff and talented and kind of disciplined, and then talk about those things, an element that, if it's something that I don't have any like talent or, just hearing other people talk about it, I think is awesome. So one more time, Nostalgia Inc. INK period. This Wednesday, Vulnerable. Check it out. It's awesome. And also, you were in a band called McCafferty, which is also really cool. I was listening to it the other day. It's like very like indie alternative rock vibes.
Very emo.
Very emo.
Very good. Very emo.
And in the best way possible. Which is a story that we didn't get into, but because of your producing skills and passions, that's like kind of what led you to that. And you might have, Nostalgia Inc. might have 0 listeners, but McCafferty has like 1.3 mil on Spotify.
1.1.
Huh?
1.1.
Oh, well.
Never mind.
Not after this pod.
Yeah.
Not after this pod.
There's going to be 1.1003 million.
So yeah, I mean, check it out, all that stuff. Seth, thank you so much for joining us. And
Ben, you're the number 1 coolest. Jesse, you're the number 2 coolest. And then,
Call is ending now. I'm getting a lot of interference.
We should have this guy on more. I like this guy.
I love you guys.
I'm driving through a solar storm.
Darius became Gerard Butler all of a sudden. Geostorm. You guys remember that movie? Oh God. That's a terrible reference. Yeah. Hey, right into the pod. NewWayStoriesPod@gmail.com. There's a candy corn that Ben just ate. And like, subscribe, do all of that fun stuff. Tell your friends about us, and we will see you next week as we give you an update on Gladiator 2 and a Crazy Carl.
Oh, Crazy Carl next week. Crazy Carl next week.
We're going to get you a Crazy Carl.
Thank you guys so much for making space for me to talk about my music that nobody listens to.
Yeah, man. Dude, that's like this is the perfect venue to talk about something that nobody listens to. New Way Stories is like your place. To. Yeah.
You're in good company.
And no one will continue to listen to it.
Well, I feel incredibly valued, and this seriously has been so fun, and you guys are amazing.
I love it. Love you, man. We'll see you guys later.